Hey, Sean.
What's up, Brother Howard?
Not much, man. You know, I've been doing this nursing gig up in the masses of the Massachusetts,
You have been saving lives in the Northeast.
up in the Cape Cods, you know.
Yes, yes. I have not been up to the Cape Cod. Sounds kind of fancy, honestly. I've been out to Boston a few times. Did a boys trip out there with my brother. Actually, not that this podcast is about sports, but
Sure.
I flew in one time on a Monday. Went to a Patriots game Monday night. They played the Jets and kicked the shit out of them. Went to the Bruins the next night, and then went to the Celtics the third night. 3 nights in a row of Boston sports. And another time I was out there was actually one of the most memorable moments in my entire life. Went to a no-hitter there in Fenway Park with my brother. So Clay Buchholz threw a no-hitter as a rookie, man.
That's a beautiful
It
park.
was honestly one of the most amazing things I'd ever witnessed. So
Well, since I've been up there, I kind of been a little charmed by the accent.
they have an accent in the Boston area?
A little bit, yeah. It's like a southern accent, except it's a little guttural, but I kind of like it. So I thought we need to have us a cop from Boston on here.
Hell yeah.
So you don't have to swing a dead cat very far to find a cop around there. They're everywhere. They have patches on every restaurant in town. So I found us a guy who's a retired police officer. Goes by the name of Dale Lawrence. How you doing, Dale?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Nice intro. I appreciate it. Love that
sir.
Boston accent, baby.
Yeah. Okay. Before we jump into it, let's see if you're a true, not an imposter. Impasta. I don't even know how it would be said up there. Let's hear a little Boston. Give us a little Boston.
I parked the car in Harvard Yard. Hey, kids, get over here.
Yeah.
Give me some money.
What are you guys all
Give me
fucking
some
robbers
money.
up there?
Yeah, South Boston, South Boston.
What type of policing are you guys doing up there? Hey, give me your money.
Wicked police.
Yeah.
But Dale
Wicked
picked
piss
our,
up policing.
yeah, Dale picked our drink tonight because he's a low energy guy. What'd you pick, Dale?
Pick some Red Bull and vodka, baby.
Red Bull and vodka.
Right here, Red Bull and vodka.
We've got that. We got what kind of vodka you drinking? We only have Kettle One.
Kettle One, that's about it for me, too. Nothing
All right,
but
well,
top
that-
shelf, brother.
That's what we're
Top
drinking
shelf.
here. Yeah, this is pretty bougie. I don't think this is Russian either. We're not supposed to be drinking Russian vodka.
Let me get some ice.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put some ice. Do you drink yours with ice?
I got a whole cup of ice in here, my friend.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Some of that too. All right. Here's to you.
There you go, guys. I appreciate the call out to come on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I usually go to bed at 9:30, but for you guys, I'm staying up late, brother.
Well, we do appreciate that.
He also says podcast.
Podcast. Man, so break it down for us. You just recently yourself got out of law enforcement, so we're going to take it back a minute. We want to talk about, your time as a youth, or maybe that's New York. I'm terrible. I'm Irish, and I can't drop these Boston accents. But we'll take you back to your time as a lad, and what put you on the path going into law enforcement?
Well, I graduated high school in probably 1983 at the bottom of my class. I'm pretty proud of that, too, because if you can't be an achiever, you might as well be an underachiever. It shows you got at least some motivation right there. So in 83, I joined the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps from 83 to 87. Loved the Marine Corps, loved the discipline, loved getting up at 5 in the morning, going for a run, going to the chow hall, the camaraderie. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I worked for the Embassy Battalion down in Quantico, Virginia. I was stationed over in Cairo, Egypt.
Wow.
I was in Moscow back in 87. I was in Warsaw, Poland, and Stuttgart, Germany.
So
And
were you
from the-
doing it?
yes.
Marine Corps security guard and all those places, MSG or whatever they call it?
Yeah, MSG.
So-
MSG back
No, good deal, because we had somebody on recently also. We were talking about MSG. My brother was at MSG. But just you mentioned Warsaw. I'm going to do a little quick story. My brother and I took a little trip through Europe, a backpacking thing, I don't know, 2004, 2005, something like that. And we actually, the camaraderie, as you mentioned, the Marine Corps, even though he was out and he was doing contract work over at the time, I think in Iraq. I think he was working in Baghdad. But we ended up showing up at the embassy there in Warsaw, and they were having their Christmas party that night, and they took us in literally just because he himself had been a Marine Corps security guard guy. They let us go in, and we got to party at the embassy in Warsaw for their Christmas party that night. And then they hooked us up with some Americans that were local that actually owned the only Tex-Mex restaurant at the time in Warsaw, Poland. So we hooked up with these guys, and I think we spent 3 nights running around with them, and they knew every bar opener or bar owner, every restaurant, every strip club owner. I mean, and we went out with these guys. I mean, we had the best time at that entire European trip in Warsaw because of the connection that he had at the embassy there.
What year was that?
2004.
I was in Warsaw in '87, and it was very communist. You couldn't go anywhere. Very structured. We couldn't do anything.
Oh yeah.
No strip clubs.
Well, and I'll say this, and
no strip clubs, baby.
No, man. And strip clubs there were different. I promise. They're not like American ones, man. But they exactly after it was post-communist era when we were there, and the people still, even though it was, a handful of years after all that happened, they were still just celebrating freedom. And I mean, it was 7, 8 o'clock at night. All the businesses shut down because everybody went out to dinners and bars and partied at night. So like all your shopping was closed, everything, man. It was just, we had an amazing time there. Now we did take time to go see, the history from the horrific things that did happen there. But Warsaw, Poland, man, love that place. All right, so jump back in. So, man, you did all your Marine Corps. You loved the structure of it. Obviously, you didn't stay in there forever.
No, I did 4.5 years, got out in '87, and I was literally in college 2 weeks later. Loved college, went to a small community college in Beverly, Massachusetts. I graduated after 4 years, and between that time in college, I took a few civil service exams, and I was lucky enough. I got on the police department back in right around 1991 as a reserve, and I worked for around 4 years of reserve. And in '95, I got hired full time. And from then, 28 years, and probably the best 28 years of my life, brother. Great times in law enforcement, great stories. It was very similar to the Marine Corps, great camaraderie. I loved working in the community policing unit. I did more or less community policing my whole career. I wasn't really one of those gung-ho guys chasing the bad guys down the street. I don't have a lot of bad guy stories, but I do have a lot of funny, comical type stories. And like I said, community policing was kind of my forte as a police officer.
Well, you were a reservist for 4 years, you said?
Yeah, in Massachusetts, I'm not sure what it's like down south, but you can work full-time as a reserve. So I pretty much worked full-time as a reserve and then was hired full-time in '95, went to the academy then. And yeah, so the 4 years that you as a reserve counts to your retirement, which is a great thing, A few years less than the 32 that you have to do.
Well, we're here in the South. We don't have, and something that I'm learning from being up there, I'm working at a hospital, all the nurses are union. So there's a ton of seniority. There's a ton of rules that go on, and getting hired on to a hospital up there is kind of an ordeal for a nurse, which is not like any place else in the world. So is that kind of the way it is in Boston, too? It takes you a while to just get your foot in the door, get your seniority under you, and then you go?
Yeah, law enforcement up on the East Coast, at least in Massachusetts, it's all unionized. And once you're in, good thing or a bad thing, you have protection of the union. Sometimes it works great for officers. Other times you get officers who are out there screwing around, but the union will still protect them. So that's kind of the negative of the union. But overall, it's great to be in the union. There's a lot of great protections, and they protect the officers' interests for the most part. And yeah, once you're in the union, you do your 32 years and you walk out of there, hopefully like I did at 55 years of age, and start another career. If I had one, I don't have one yet. It's a great thing. At law enforcement on the East Coast, it's a great thing. And a lot of my friends from the Marine Corps were down south in Baltimore. They were down in Florida and Miami and in Los Angeles, and they got a lot of horror stories. Tough law enforcement in that part of the country. Very, very tough down south.
Well, in urban areas like down south around here, every cop works his beat in a car. In Boston, is that the way you started out, or did you walk a foot beat?
No, what happened was community policing kind of died down after 2000, but prior to 2000, we had walking beats, we had bike patrol beats, we had, we were in the schools, we had after school programs, we had a lot of good community policing. But after 2000, all the cops got back in their cars and started hunting terrorists. Right after 9/11, policing up here on the East Coast changed from community policing oriented to more paramilitary up here. So we do have walking beats still in the city that I used to work. It's kind of more on a volunteer basis. They don't force you to get out of your car. But, community policing for me, the reason why I liked it so much, because it brings cops to the community. It brings a sense of trust. Most communities that have problems with law enforcement, it's usually because the community doesn't trust the cops. They don't know the cops. They don't know the cops by first name. The cops aren't in the schools. The cops aren't walking into the businesses, talking to people. The cops aren't down at the parks, playing baseball or basketball with the kids. So without that community policing, there's no trust. And without trust, you see what's going on right now in the country. Law enforcement right now, it needs a really big makeover. Public relations makeover for law enforcement right now. And a part of that is due to the lack of community policing after 9/11.
Well, let me ask you this. What agency did you actually work for up there? Because I know Howard's referring to Boston. It sounds like you're saying for the agency that you worked for. Did you not work for Boston?
I did not work for the Boston PD. I worked a little outside of Boston, Beverly, Massachusetts, right next to Salem, Massachusetts. You've heard of the Salem Witches?
The Witches,
it's a small community. Yeah, right on the seashore. 40,000 population. We have around 70 cops. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a smaller community. Every cop that works in that community is from that community. So they're really tied into the community. They're really committed to the safety of the community. They're committed to the image of the police department because they live in that community. Their kids go to school there. Their wives work there. They work there. So I think policing in a smaller community, for me, was really a very positive, refreshing thing. I do have a few friends that work for Boston PD, and it's a hustle, it's a grind, it's a lot of stuff going on out there, and I think sometimes officers in bigger communities kind of get lost in the shuffle. They get kind of, there's not a lot of personalization in communities like that, and there's a lot of distrust of police officers in larger communities because the community doesn't know the officers.
Well, the thing about Boston that I've found in the area up there is that towns kind of bleed together, right? So your town bleeds into the other town. I mean, it's hard to figure out when one town starts and the next one stops. And
it's a lot.
Beverly's pretty close to Boston. What are you, like 15 miles?
About 20 miles away. We're right on the seacoast. Right on the seacoast. Beverly's like I said, really nice middle-class community. A lot of nice homes here. We have a crime problem, but it's not a crime problem that's kind of similar to Boston, but every community has their issues. Every community deals with certain crimes that are kind of nuisance to the community and things of that nature. But obviously it's not a Boston or even a Tulsa, Oklahoma for that matter.
Yeah, you've seen us on the first 48, I guess, or heard about it. Yeah,
absolutely. Anywhere they do 48 hours, there's bad crime there, brother.
Yeah, that's it. Have you seen the comedian by the name of Tom Segura? He kind of drops a little. He's got a little piece about that.
Yeah, yes, I love Tom Segura. He's great. Yeah, he does have. My podcast, I do it with a bunch of comedians, so I'm pretty much well connected into the comedy circle.
Yeah, he does. He drops a little piece. He says something like, I'll tell you one place I don't ever want to go. It's wherever they film the first 48. So Tulsa's a regular on there. So, all right. So, man, so they're in Beverly, Massachusetts. You were doing a little community policing. And give us some. Let's hear this little Boston accent. We got like little drunk leprechauns running around. I mean, what are we doing up there?
It all depends. I got to buy. What are you looking for? You want
some town? You got Ben Affleck running around and Robin Banks with nun masks on.
You got a big guy with a samurai sword.
Oh, you know something? Funny story. We have a guy. He was. I used to be a boxer. And there was a kid from my boxing club. Nice kid. Really nice kid. Really squared away. He was a model. And something happened to him. I don't know what happened to him, but he had some psychological breakdown. And in one instance, he was in our community, and we got a call for a very large man walking down the street waving a samurai sword. And when I say very large, he's about 6'5", 350. Damn. So we encountered him at a gas station. It was probably 2 p.m, and he was waving the sword. And I knew exactly who he was because just by the description, there's only one person that lives in that community that large. So we had an encounter with him. We confronted him, and we were able to de-escalate him. And he recognized me, even though he had some serious mental health issues at that point in his life with schizophrenia and things like that. But he recognized me as one of the guys from the boxing club, and he dropped the sword, and we cuffed him up and took him to the hospital.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's I don't want to go give it to 6'5" guy with samurai.
I don't want to box a 6'5" guy.
Can you imagine? You wouldn't even get close to him. You'd just be like Walker in the bathroom on the ground.
No, hell no.
So tell us some more about this. Tell us about Beverly.
Now, Beverly, I got a few. You want some scary stories? I got scary sexual. I got scary
we like
funny.
That sounds good.
Let me go with the scary funny first. We got a call. There was a real bad thunder and lightning storm. We got a call for a house. The mother called. She says, my son's in the backyard, and he's in the pool, and he has a 10-foot long metal rod, and he's trying to commit suicide. He was waiting for a lightning strike, waiting for a lightning strike. And we went there, and, fortunate for the police officers. In small communities, you usually know a lot of the guys. And we went to high school with this kid, so we were able to talk him out of the pool, cuff him up, take him to the hospital, and kind of calm him down for a few days. And, he had a pretty productive life after that. But even funny thing about that, I was literally in kindergarten with that kid. And when I was in kindergarten with that kid, he had his own special monitor. So at 7 or 8 years old, you knew he was a kind of whacked out, and he just carried it on through the rest of his life, man.
Got you. When you say he had a monitor, right, and he was doing this, my first thing was he probably had broken up with his only girlfriend. That's what usually drives guys to try to kill themselves, but it sounds like he wasn't going to accomplish that the way he was going.
You're talking about the kid in the pool or the guy with the sword?
No.
Yeah, the kid in the pool, he was just, unfortunately for him, he was just born that way. Bad DNA, brother. Probably his parents probably shouldn't have had him. There was a bad mix of DNA in that family, and the kid just came out kind of whacked out. And, ever since he was a little kid, they knew it. They recognized it. And throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school, he was always a kid one-on-one with people because you really couldn't trust him around other people. He was kind of a volatile type kid.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that carried into his adult years.
Well, we're going to talk about the big elephant in the room.
What's that?
Your name's not Dale Lawrence, is it?
No, I guess tonight's my coming out party, and not probably the way you guys wish.
Yeah.
You want to know what happened? As I was getting out of law enforcement, I always wanted to do a podcast, and the one I do right now is Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. And I spoke to a few officers that I work with. A couple of my good old buddies from the Marine Corps are kind of high up in the chain of command, and I spoke to them about it, and they were a little apprehensive. We're a little woke here in Boston. There's a little political influence in police departments up here. I'm not sure what it's like down south. So they kind of advised me, hey, if you're going to do it, you might want to come up with a different name. So I said, hey, you know something? Dale Lawrence sounds like a good name to me. So the first couple of podcasts, I did it as Dale Lawrence. And then once I retired, I said, you know something? The name sounded good to me, and everyone was recognizing it as Dale Lawrence, so I just kept it. However, my actual real birth name is Brian Long. Nice Irish kid from Beverly, Massachusetts, baby.
Brian Long.
Hello, I'm Brian Long. I would have gone with Brian Long.
Yeah. In porn, that's a good name for porn, for OnlyFans. Like, we had a young lady that was on here that formerly was a police officer as well, and she had started an OnlyFans up, and she kind of had to play around with that as well with the department, kind of keep it ducked under there for a little bit until she retired. Then same thing, she came out with her original name and rocked it and is doing well from my understanding.
So I guess tomorrow on my podcast, I guess I'm gonna have to come out with my real name.
Yeah, it'll be a big coming out party.
No, it's actually
a big one.
There's nothing wrong, honestly. I think with using an alias for something like this, it kind of separates, especially being in law enforcement for roughly 30 years. It kind of separates the two for you between your personal life and your new path you're taking.
Well, we'll tell you. We'll share a funny story with you. When we started this podcast, we had to go through like hell and back. We almost didn't start this podcast because they didn't like our name. It was too offensive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were spot on. We knew we wanted Coptales and Cocktails, and Dan Abrams, I love you, brother. He was he's kind of the backing, helping this thing get started in the company, and they were not fans of the cocktails portion of it. And we thought it was catchy. We liked the spin on the spelling difference between the two. We thought, if somebody's looking at podcasts, whether it's in the real, true crime world or law enforcement, we thought that just the name kind of stuck out. And we had numerous phone calls, emails, personal text messages going back that they were not on board with it. So our producer back in New York, Sam, he'll be listening to this, and he remembers these conversations quite well. But yeah, in the end, no harm, no foul. We landed here with Coptales and Cocktails, and I think everybody's happy, and even they, I guess, what's the word, apologized, or
they saw our vision.
They saw the vision. Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
They thought, we wanted to keep it lighthearted.
Yeah, and that's what this thing is.
Cocktails do that.
So if you think if I tried to rebrand my podcast to The PD on LSD, that wouldn't go over with you guys, or what?
I think that would go over very well. I think you get a whole new crowd.
No, so here's what you do, though. You come up with some, a different acronym for LSD, something, whether it be funny or something law enforcement, and then you can roll with that all day. The PD on LSD, it is catchy. You just have a different acronym for what LSD stands for.
Here's another one for you, Sticks. I know we mentioned before we came on air about the name Perp. You never heard Perp before?
Yeah.
I got another one. How about...
Do you guys call bad guys perps up there?
Yeah, some. Not so much. We just probably call them knuckleheads or shitheads or something like that.
I mean, literally, it's
what do you guys call them?
Bad guys.
Bad guys.
Literally bad guy. I mean, it's bad guy. I don't know. That's gangsters. Yeah, I mean, that's the term,
Yeah, how about the Perps on Percocet?
Perps.
There you go. Get a bunch of Perp. Yeah, give them a whole bunch of Percocet, put them in a room, see if you can solve some unsolved crimes there. See what you can get them to admit to. Get them all fucked up on some perks.
A game show.
All right, I'm going to need some advice here. It's coming up on Patriots Day in Massachusetts. Can you explain to me what the hell Patriots Day is?
Oh, wow. Didn't you hear me a few minutes ago? I graduated the last person in my class at the high school I went to. I'm not 100% sure what it is. Is it when, I don't know, when all the Patriots got together and started kicking the British ass? I'm not sure what it is.
Shit, I don't know.
But I know we have the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, it's April 18th, right?
Yeah, the Boston Marathon this year is April 18th.
What they call that, like
yes.
Patriots Week, and it's a big party in Boston, or what is it?
Yeah, just more the marathon. The marathon would be the big party. There's really no big party here. They have a few parades here and there. People get a day off from work. People go out and get drunk, especially in Boston. The Red Sox usually play that day, and the marathon goes on. So the big party would be the marathon.
All right, well, let me get some bad information. We're in a whole different world out on the Cape, It's kind of dead in the winter.
So how do you go from Tulsa to the Cape?
Yeah, I took a plane. Actually, I drove a car first, and then I took a plane. No, they have these traveling gigs all over the place, so we were able to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they kind of, I guess there's like a national, I have a recruiter, but there's jobs all over the place. I don't know if you know this or not. Oh,
that's great.
But, nurses were pretty popular during the pandemic, so we ended up with lots of opportunities. And I've never been to the Cape, so what the hell, I go out there.
Howard?
Yeah, it's great.
Sorry,
great
Jason.
Living down in the Cape, brother.
No, yeah. Jason, are you doing some work over here on Patriots Day for us?
Commemorating the battles, some of the first battles of the American Revolution.
So he said some of the first battles of the American Revolution. So there's a little history lesson for Dale Lawrence. And
there you go. How's Lexington and Concord sound? I remember that. I know they had the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Am I spot on with that?
He is shaking his head, and he says, yes, you are spot on. So
there you go. I got to redeem myself here.
Jason Sales.
Well, I guess the kids get out of school and shit. It's like Fair Day here. You know how the kids get out for the Tulsa State Fair? We call it fucking Fair Day here.
Oh, there you go.
You get to go out there.
That's
we have a great
times.
time at the fair. We dress up like we're white trash, which is pretty much our normal clothes, and we go out there and play fair games and eat turkey legs.
That's beautiful stuff.
Man, so Beverly, Massachusetts, you got on the police department. 9/11 does happen. What was the change in your department? You kind of mentioned being out on literally foot patrol, and that does vary from agency to agency. here in Tulsa, kind of only foot patrol we have some downtown because we have a lot of bars and restaurants down there. And we had a unit called Footbeat, and they actually worked all our housing projects. And we had a lot of crime. This was back in the area, gangs and dope running around like crazy. So we had different officers assigned complexes, and we were responsible for all of the calls that went out in there, as well as doing proactive policing. So we were out on foot, kind of. I'm not gonna lie, we weren't out there walking around shaking hands and handing out lollipops. We were kind of creeping around trying to catch the gangsters, selling dope and stuff like that. But it sounds like it was a little bit different there.
Yeah, so basically prior to 9/11, like I said, we had a really large community policing unit. We had DARE officers, bike patrol, we had after-school programs, boxing programs, literally right after 9/11. All the funding from that changed. We started sending officers to assault rifle training school. We had the FBI and the ATF came into the city, and they were shaking down any person in that city pretty much who had a last name that sounded like they were from the Middle East. They were shaking people down. They were going in, interviewing people, checking for papers, were they there legally or illegally. And some people, they had businesses in the city, they owned property in the city, and they were deported relatively quickly out of the city. And I'm not sure if that happened in a lot of communities, but I'm pretty sure it did. And that, like I said, after 9/11, I think it really is where a lot of communities, especially smaller communities, lost touch with the community, and the police department became very anonymous at that point. And pretty much cops were, like I said, they were thrown back into the cruisers, and they were just focused on trying to deal with whatever was happening out in the street, dealing with the street crime that was relative to that community. And like I said, a lot of the interaction with the general public, the citizens, the kids in the schools pretty much stopped. And I think we're seeing the backlash of that right now in law enforcement across the country, unfortunately.
So you're telling me that like the whole the bombing actually took all your funds from community policing, put it into more like you became the Homeland Security branch, right? You were
basically a lot of the offices, instead of having community policing units, they would have Homeland Security officers who all, they got trained up on how to recognize certain things that are relative to Middle Eastern nationalities and some of the way terrorists may operate. We had officers going to computer school to understand a lot of the stuff that's happening on the internet and intercepting things via the internet. So everything changed literally within months after that.
Well, so I'll say this, being in the gang unit, I was responsible for writing and managing federal grants.
Right.
And police departments across the country, small, big, medium sized, whatever, everybody applies for federal grants because you get, money to help out your department, whether it's funding. All in the way you write it up, there's very specific ways the money can be used. There's some stuff that can be used for equipment. It's strictly used for equipment. There's some that can be used for overtime, for investigations, as long as they're all geared towards a specific goal, that when you write this thing up. And you've got performance, measures you have to do quarterly. You've got all these reports. I mean, they're very paperwork intense, I guess, as you manage a federal grant. So with my position with the gang unit, I wrote numerous grants. We received a lot of them through the years, and, you're responsible for managing them. Because I was in that position as long as I was, I did it through different presidencies of the country. Right. So depending who was in office was where the grant money was directed towards. So you get somebody who, in my opinion, is very pro-law enforcement. Hey, we're going to get fucking bad guys off the street. Money goes towards, we're going to chase gangsters. We're going to chase, violent offenders, that type of deal, dope dealers at a certain level and stuff like that. It's put towards that. You get somebody who's in office that is more into wanting to hold hands and, pat everybody on the back and tell them, hey, we're going to get you fixed, even though they're a bad guy. Money goes more towards counseling, rehab, and stuff like that. So we lose money. And I saw that go on, through the years. So I can't speak, obviously, for the Northeast. I was in law enforcement when 9/11 happened. We don't have that type of, a community of, a large number of Middle Easterners here in Tulsa. So nothing changed for us in that world. But I have seen the way, depending literally who holds the office of president and how it trickles all the way down to a police department in Tulsa, Oklahoma, how money gets spent.
Well, do you think that that has something to do with the population density that's up there in the east? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Sticks hit it right on the nose. Depending on, like, down south, obviously in Tulsa, huge gang issues down there in the Florida area down south. So obviously, if you take money from that type of activity, your streets, you're not even able to walk your streets if the
Correct.
gangbangers are out there running the streets. Up here in Massachusetts, there's not a lot of gang activity. We do have gang activity, not in the community I work. We have it in Boston. We have it in a town called Lawrence. We have it in Springfield. We have it in Worcester, Mass. But in regards to gangs up here, yeah, there's not a lot of money spent on gang enforcement and gang infiltration up here. So whatever the money was spent on, it was, like I said, it was more or less community policing. They pulled a lot of the drug officers out of the schools with the DARE program, and they threw it into the Homeland Security program.
well, you end up with a lot of, let's use the DARE program as an example. One of the things that I noticed up there is that in the hospital, especially on the Cape, we end up with a lot of people who have some pretty serious substance abuse problems, you know? So it's just like every other place in the world. There's a big drug trade that goes on. A lot of people are taking drugs, whether they be over the counter or whether they be made in the basement kind of drugs. So was that some stuff that you dealt with?
Yeah, absolutely. And probably right as of right now, I mean, every community has a drug problem, whether it be marijuana, fentanyl, pills, heroin, cocaine, whatever it may be. And we've always had that, but I think probably in the 90s is when the OxyContin hit pretty hard up here on the East Coast.
Thank you,
And,
Sackler family.
you know, hot. Yeah, and from there, you had the heroin. So the heroin deaths, probably from 2000 to 2010 on the East Coast, doubled. And now what you're dealing with up here is you're dealing with the fentanyl, and not only fentanyl in the heroin and in the pills, but we've had a couple of deaths of young kids who were just smoking a joint. They're not drug addicts, they're not heroin addicts, they're not coke addicts, they're not even pill heads. They're just a kid smoking a joint that was laced with fentanyl. So that's what you're seeing now, and obviously, you know, we know where that's coming from
Yep.
with the open borders. So there's no argument on that one right there. So that's kind of the big thing that we're seeing up here on the East Coast is just a run-of-the-mill, nice kid smoking a joint, dropping dead because it's laced with fentanyl.
Well, since that money went, it came out of community policing, went into Homeland Security type stuff. Has it gone back since we've kind of, I mean, it's been a good 27 years now?
21, 22.
21.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
21,
9/11
21.
Yeah.
I mean, 21 is some change.
Yeah, if you're a progressive police department, and I think a lot of them up here are becoming more progressive, and you're a mayor or you're the governor or you're a chief, a police chief in a community up here, then absolutely, if you know what's going on and you understand law enforcement, you understand the importance of community policing, a lot of those programs are slowly starting to come back, especially in the last couple of years. If you're a progressive, like I said, law enforcement official, you should know that cops at any point in time are probably the most disliked and distrusted at this point in probably the last 50 years. So it behooves that officer, or I mean, I should say that leader of that department, to funnel money back into community policing and start building trust within the community.
So what I'm hearing,
Yes.
so what I'm hearing you say is that by getting back to that community policing, that we could kind of heal this rift that the public has with the police. Because I mean, personally, I don't think everybody knows that we need the police, right? I think that it's kind of got blown out of proportion how many people dislike the police, right?
Yeah, I think if you were to just randomly ask people on the street, I think most people would tell you, hey, I love the police, I respect the police, I want the police. However, there's just enough people, maybe in the media, who will kind of refute that and spread kind of a bad narrative, and some people will buy into that narrative. And then you have people thinking that they don't trust the police. So something has to be done somewhere. And like I said, I'm a huge advocate of just getting cops out in the street. And that's what I loved to do when I was a cop. And the guys that I associated with, that's what we love to do. Because we lived in the community. So we want to feel safe in our own community. We want our schools to be safe. We want to be able to walk down the street, go to the park, and not have to worry about someone giving us a hard time just because we're a cop, off-duty cop, or an on-duty cop. So I think that a lot of that's starting to come back especially up in the East Coast, North Shore area of Massachusetts.
Well, when you started, obviously you were a reservist for 4 years. It was kind of hard to get in. What's the climate now? What do the academies look like? How long has it taken a cadet to get through the academy and get a full-time position?
Right around 22 weeks. It's been pretty, probably in the last 25 years, it's been right around 22 weeks of intense training, to knock out a great recruit. So yeah, 22 weeks, whatever that equals to months. How's my math doing? About 6 months, a little under 5 months.
Your math is better than Howard trying to put together how long ago 9/11 was.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than Howard's.
27 years ago. I think it was 27 years ago.
27.
Yeah.
You just fast forward us a few years.
It's pretty much.
Yeah, little under 6 months.
Right. So what are the challenges of the new police coming out in your area?
Oh boy! All I know is I have a son. He's a comedian, and I've always asked him. I say, "You don't want to be a cop, do you?" And he looks at me and goes, "No way." I think you really, to be a cop right now, up in the Northeast or anywhere in the country, you really have to have some academic background in regards to what's going on in society, what the actual facts are when it comes to crime, when it comes to things like racial profiling, and have an understanding on how society views cops. So you can go in there with a very objective view of how people perceive you, and you have to be thick-skinned. You have to be a great communicator. You have to be reasonable. You have to be likable. I mean, some cops, you can relate to this, Dick. Some cops just right off the bat, they walk out of the car and people don't like them. For whatever reason, they put out a persona, whether it's their walk, their talk, how they look. And nowadays, that's only going to work against you. Everyone's videotaping everybody out there, and you don't want to have that rep. So you really have to have your shit together, and you have to be grounded on who you are, and you have to be confident in your ability. And I think, for me, I'm a great advocate of people from the military who've done a good career in the military, whatever service, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, doesn't matter. A lot of those guys coming out into law enforcement have the maturity and the just wherewithal to be able to deal with a lot of the stuff that's going out there on the streets right now.
All right. Well, I've got a legal question for both of you, and I want to see. You're my expert cops here, okay? And I want to see what the difference is in Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Okay.
and then Beverly, Massachusetts. So let's say that I'm riding my bicycle along, right?
Yep.
And
Is this the little one you got with the little pink flare things off
Yeah,
the
with
handlebars you have?
my tricycle with the basket on the back.
With a little flowered Howard on the front
it's
with the name
very
tag on
nice.
it.
I got
Josh
a-
Reeser sitting in the little car seat in the back end of it.
I've got him in between the handlebars.
Okay. Facing you?
Yeah, and his legs are shaved, so I can go faster. So I'm riding a bike along. A dog is being walked by an owner who's not on a leash. The dog comes out, runs at me, gets in front of me, causes me to wreck. I get up, pissed off, and kick the dog because it's still coming at me. Am I at fault, or is the owner at fault? We'll take Tulsa, Oklahoma first.
Well, what are we talking at fault for? You kicking the dog?
Yeah.
No, well, you can kick the dog if you're defending yourself. So the dog's coming at you. You said he's coming at you.
Right.
Aggressive dog.
Yeah.
You have a right to defend yourself.
Okay.
Your foot is how you are choosing to defend yourself. You're 100% justified in it. Now,
I don't punch down much.
you don't punch. Yeah, don't punch down. Now, I mean, it's a different story if you're just pissed off at some dog and you walk over and try to kick a field goal with it.
Right.
So then you're in some trouble. Then you got some animal cruelty, a little felony charge. But you can defend yourself however you need to.
Even if it's an animal.
Even if it's an animal, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, how's it work in Beverly?
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. That's an easy one. That's it's a jump ball. Easy one. I mean, I guess where you would go wrong is if you kicked it once and you kind of knocked it onto Queer Street, and then you started kicking it 3 or 4 or 5 more times and throwing down Queer Street. Queer Street? I don't know where Queer Street is, but it's when you get, we used to say that in boxing. You put him on Queer Street, you hit him with a couple of good shots, he doesn't know where he's at. You can't give him the old Tulsa, Oklahoma beatdown, brother. You give him one little kick and he the owner grabs them and they take off and you go on your way.
So I can
Clean that wound
I
up.
get one kick. That's all I get, right?
Well, I mean, as long as you kind of disable the dog and the dog ain't biting you anymore, you're good to go, brother. Whether it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or in Beverly, Massachusetts.
Well, what if in this case my bicycle is ruined in this wreck?
You have a civil deal.
Oh,
You pursue it civilly
okay,
against the owner of said dog.
okay. These are some legal questions that I come up with every once in a while.
I will bill you for these.
Dogs.
Can I ask you a question, Howard?
Sure.
Are you in like an avid walker and you on your route typically in the morning there's some lady who pisses you off and she's got a dog and you're just kind of buying your options out there, seeing what you can do tomorrow morning?
For days. Yeah, I'm gonna knock it a queer street.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, no, I am not an avid walker. I like to ride my bicycle, and today I was riding my bicycle on some trails, and some people had a dog that was off its leash, and I had to do everything I could to keep from hitting it at a high rate of speed. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what would have happened if I would have hit this dog? Because I probably would have kicked it.
Well, even if you had crashed, I mean, you'd have a civil type of deal against this dog because here in the city,
Yeah, you
we
gotta be on leash.
we do have things. They've got to be on a leash when out there, so you'd have a good civil deal. Now, honestly, the person could be also cited for. I mean, there's literally called, I think it's like dog on leash. I mean, there's a city charge as well for something like that. So the person could be cited, which is a ticket, and then you'd have a civil litigation against a person.
And the reason I'm asking this is I do also have a bike up in Massachusetts, so I want to know if the law's the same up there if I'm riding around.
Yeah, you're all set, Howard. You're good to go, brother. It's kind of funny you asked that question because I worked in dispatch for a while too. A lot of guys, you do some time in dispatch, and people would call the station all the time and they would ask certain questions. And after a couple of minutes, you'd say, are you planning on hurting someone? Are you planning on doing something criminal? Because what you're asking me, it appears as though you're either looking to assault your wife, I don't know,
I need
steal
an
something,
example.
rob a bank.
I need an example here.
So yours is pretty tame, though, Howard, so you're all set, brother.
well, give me one that you got through dispatch.
Yeah, it was, unfortunately, it was a domestic situation, and it was a lady calling. She had a history of domestic. She didn't know that we knew the number that she called from because, we obviously most police departments will have caller ID. So we knew who she was, and she was calling about her boyfriend who she thought was cheating on her. And she was asking what would happen if I caught my boyfriend cheating. I mean, can I punch him in the face? Can I hit him with something? If he hits me first, can I use a weapon? And, we had to obviously cut that conversation off, and we had to go to her house and speak to her and kind of advise her of her rights because she was pretty much incriminating herself. We were hoping and praying that we weren't going to find a body somewhere.
This sounds like an episode of Forensic
week
Files
later.
in the making. She's
Yeah.
going to plan her defense out ahead of time.
Well, Dale Lawrence, a.k.a. Brian Long, we're about to wrap it up.
Oh, really? That fast,
It
brother?
flows, man.
That's 45 minutes, man. It goes quick, doesn't it?
So, man, where can people find you on your podcast that you've got out there rocking now?
It's going to be InsideTheLine.org. Real stories by real cops. So I do that one. I do it with a bunch of comedians. And we also do a Soccer Heads podcast. I don't know if you guys are into soccer. SoccerHeadsNewEngland.com. I do that with a bunch of national comedians. We do it at my house every Monday.
How the
It's
hell
a
did
real
you get,
funny
I gotta
bastards.
ask, how'd you get hooked up with comedians, man? Where'd this come from?
Well, my son's a comedian. He's a young comedian in the Boston area. He's a comedian, and his manager, who runs all the comedy in Boston, Massachusetts, Scamps Comedy, a guy by the name of Dave Radigan. If you want to be a comic in Boston, you either go through him or you go somewhere else. And he's a good front man. He's like Howard. He's like Howard to you. He's a great front man, asks a lot of questions, keeps the conversation going. And then from there, he has a bunch of other comedians who are soccer heads. And they love soccer, so we just came up with a Soccer Heads New England
Soccer.
podcast. A guy named
They play soccer.
Yeah, soccer.
And the lore. Do you ever say lore?
Lore.
Love that.
And I'm still looking for a job. I'm still looking for a job through retirement, and maybe I'll get one, maybe I won't. I'm not sure yet.
Well, it was a pleasure having you, sir.
Well, I appreciate the invite. You guys are ever up in Boston, look me up. I'm right in Beverly, Massachusetts. Howard, if you ever get hooked up down there in the Cape and they arrest you for animal cruelty, throw my name around. Best thing I can do for you, I can probably bail you out, Howard.
All right, well, I keep some bail money. I probably won't try to hit any dogs.
Dale, brother, we do appreciate it, man. Be careful.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care, guys.